4 weeks into the school year, a parent looked at me after a meeting and said, "You don't look like what I expected." 4 weeks. And that's not even the strangest thing I want to talk to you about today. Because it turns out a lot of what's normal at your kid's school right now would have felt completely foreign to you as a kid, depending on your age. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Veteran Teacher Files. I'm the Dragon Lady, and today's episode is a little different. It's inspired by someone outside my own classroom walls. And I'm not going to use an alias for her. I'm actually going to give her a plug. Her name is Brianna Bado and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, B-A-D-O, and she's a momfluencer. She's on Instagram and on YouTube, and we met over 4 years ago when she put together a stroller mom group in our area. Our oldest kids are close in age, and we kind of run in similar mom circles, kind of have similar mom habits, mom likes. So yeah, I follow her on Instagram. I'll even comment on some of her posts now and then, and we've had a couple play dates. If you don't already know her, go find her, go follow her, because her content is exactly the kind of honest, in the trenches mom content I think this audience would love, especially if you have younger kids. So her oldest just started kindergarten this year, and she's been posting her observations about what that first day and the first week actually looked like. And as a former kindergarten teacher and former first grade teacher, I looked at her post and thought, okay, some of this is going to surprise parents. And some of this has been a reality in school for a lot longer than people realize. So today, I want to walk you through 4 things she noticed, add some data and history to it, and then tell you about something that happened to me literally today that I think ties this whole thing together. So, Brianna's first observation was about the first day of kindergarten. Not getting to meet the teacher, not getting to walk her son hand in hand to his classroom door the way she remembers her own parents doing. And okay, look, I get why that stings. That first day walk is a moment. But here's what 25 plus years in this profession across 7 different school sites has taught me. It completely depends on where you're at, and it has for a long time. So let me give you a quick run through my own career. My first site, I honestly can't remember, but I have a feeling that we were probably closed. My second site was a charter, and it was open, but only on the first day. My third site was open, just open all the time. My fourth site was open the first day, just the first day. My fifth site was closed. My sixth site was open to the door for kindergarten and TK all year long as you parked the car somewhere, not in the car line. And the 7th site, where I'm at now, is closed. So out of 7 sites, 4 had some version of open campus and 3 didn't. It is genuinely a coin flip, depending on your district, your site, your principal, your security plan for that year. And this isn't new. Closed campus policies as a concept goes back decades. Fremont, California. So Fremont Unified School District, right here in California, the state where I live at, adopted one all the way back in 1983. What's accelerated it more recently are 2 things everybody will recognize. Parkland in 2018 and Uvalde in 2022. After Parkland, districts across the county, including ones in Florida, poured money into hardening campuses. And parents themselves got split on it. Some wanted their access back. Others said flat out, you know what? The car line works fine. There's no reason for parents to be walking around campus. After Uvalde, you saw another nationwide wave. Locking classroom doors, single point of entry, closed campuses becoming the default instead of the exception. There's even reporting out of Texas where a district spokesperson said, point blank, "We're not doing anything new. We're just doing what all the other districts have been doing for years." So when Brianna wonders what it was like when she was a kid, she's 29. I'm coming up on 45. I don't know exactly where her elementary school looked like or where it was at, but this closed campus shift didn't start with her son's kindergarten class. It's been building since before either of us were parents. And it's tied directly to safety decisions that most of us, if we're honest, aren't going to argue against. All right. Her second observation, and this one I actually think is her strongest point, is about the car line. Not that it exists, but what it demands of a 5-year-old. Every school I've worked at has had a car line. 4 of my 7 sites run it the same way. Keep it moving, don't stop, get the kid out as fast as you can. And Brianna's observation is that a lot of kindergartners genuinely cannot buckle themselves in yet. That quick, efficient line the school needs to keep moving for a parent of a 5-year-old is actually kind of a logistical nightmare. This isn't just the mom being dramatic. This is a documented issue in a child passenger safety world. There are certified child passenger safety technicians who specifically address this because so many families are dealing with it. Their advice is like this: put the car in park, engage the brake, reach back, and release the buckle yourself so your child can finish getting free. That's a workaround people needed enough that someone wrote it down and just turned it into a whole guide. And here's where it gets even worse. Liability has made schools pull back from even helping. I found a parent forum thread where a family was told school staff are not allowed to buckle kids into their car seats anymore because of liability concerns. So now you've got a kid who can't fully buckle themselves, a parent who isn't allowed to get out and help without holding up the car line, and staff who aren't allowed to help either. Nobody's wrong here exactly. Everybody's covering themselves, but the kid's stuck in the middle of it. I'll add my own outside perspective here. A year back or so, I went out of state, St. George, Utah to be exact, and I visited a school there. And the first thing that hit me was the parking lot. It was massive. It was clearly built for the community to actually park and walk in. Schools here in California are not built like that. Our lots are tiny, mostly taken up by staff, which is part of why the car line exists in the first place. There's nowhere for parents to park, even if they wanted to walk their kid in. So some of this isn't even just policy. It's literally how the buildings were designed decades ago, before anyone was thinking about 5-year-olds and buckling car seats. Her third observation is one I actually think surprised parents the most: how much technology there is already in kindergarten classrooms. We're talking Promethean boards for daily instruction, beginning of the year assessments done on screens, phonics and letter sound recognition practice on an iPad or a classroom computer instead of a worksheet, and the one that gets parents every time, kindergartners get assigned a Google email address. They don't use it for years, but it exists from day one. This didn't happen overnight. One-on-one device programs really took off around 2010, and then they exploded during COVID, when relief funding let districts hand a device to every student, sometimes starting in kindergarten. As of last year, education makes up to 60% of the entire global Chromebook market. That's a $14 billion industry built on the idea that a laptop in every backpack equals better learning. Now, how are 5-year-olds getting Google accounts without parents signing anything? That comes down to federal law called COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. It requires companies to get parental consent before collecting personal information from kids under 13. But there's a carve-out. Schools are legally allowed to consent on their parents' behalf for educational tools, as long as the data is being used for the school's benefit and nothing else. That's the loophole every classroom Google account walks through. It's not exactly a secret either. But it's also not something most parents ever actually sign off on directly. The school does it for you. And that carve-out has actually landed Google in real legal trouble. There's a 2025 federal lawsuit alleging Google tracks student internet activity and builds a data profile on individual kids without direct parental consent, on top of an earlier 2020 New Mexico suit over collected local data, search history, and even saved passwords. Here's the part I think is worth telling Brianna, though. The pendulum is already swinging back. Several states, including Kansas, Virginia, and North Carolina, are actively pulling Chromebooks back into shared classroom carts, restricting their use to specific teacher-directed tasks, and in some cases pulling them out of the youngest grades entirely. And on the parenting side, the American Academy of Pediatrics just overhauled its screen guidance this year. They dropped the old 2-hour daily limit completely and moved towards looking at content quality and content instead of a strict number. So, if this feels like a runaway train right now, for what it's worth, it might not stay this way by the time her kid reaches middle school. That's still a long ways away, but there is hope. Hopefully. So, Brianna's fourth observation is the one I think a lot of parents specifically are going to relate to. The jump from half-day TK to full-day kindergarten. She's not a fan of it. She felt like it was too big of a transition for her son to go from a shorter TK day straight into a full kindergarten day. And here's the thing. She's not imagining the size of that jump. It's built into how the state defines these programs. California only requires TK to run a minimum of 180 minutes a day. That's 3 hours. Full day kindergarten depends on the district, and it's usually running 5 to 6.5 hours. So a TK kid can go from a 3-hour day to potentially double that practically overnight the moment they age into kindergarten. Now, the research on how much that actually affects kids is mixed, which I think is worth being honest about. California's own multi-year study on TK, done by the American Institute for Research, following over 6,000 kindergartners, found that kids who went through TK entered kindergarten 3 to 6 months ahead in literacy and math compared to kids who didn't. But here's the interesting part. When they compared half-day TK classrooms to full-day TK classrooms, the effect was basically the same. The benefit wasn't coming from the length of the day. It was coming from other things like having a credentialed teacher and a program closely aligned with kindergarten. On the fatigue question specifically, you'll find research on both sides. Some studies report no measurable difference in fatigue between half-day and full-day kindergartners. But other sources are pretty direct about flagging younger kids in the grade, especially the ones who just barely made the age cutoff, and especially boys, as more likely to struggle with full day, more likely to melt down during long stretches of seated work, and more likely to get mislabeled as behavior problems when what's actually going on is that they're just tired. So I don't think Brianna's wrong to feel like it's a big jump, because structurally it is. Whether it actually harms a given kid probably depends a lot on that individual kid, which is the frustrating answer to almost everything in this profession. So here's what happened to me today, and why I think it actually ties all 3 stories together. So I met with a parent after school, and one of the first things she said to me was, "Oh, you don't look like what I expected." We are 4 weeks into the school year, 4 weeks, and the parent had no idea what I looked like. I told my husband about it, and he was like, "Wow, 4 weeks in and a parent doesn't know what you look like?" Now, that's not unusual to me. I can think back to the years when I was teaching middle school before, where I went an entire school year without ever seeing a parent's face. Not at drop-off, not at pickup, not anywhere. My husband's take was that loss of personal connection has to account for something. That maybe some of what we're seeing in classroom behavior management is downstream of parents and teachers simply not knowing each other as people anymore. And when I lay it next to everything else in this episode, I think he's onto something. Every single thing we just talked about, the closed campus, the car line, even the online classroom tools, removes a moment where a parent and teacher used to naturally cross paths. Walking your kid to the door, chatting for 30 seconds at pickup, even the paper folder that used to go home and get signed and handed back is now replaced by some portal notification that you might not even open. None of these individual decisions were made to disconnect us. They were made for safety, for efficiency, for reliability. But add them all up, and a parent can go a full school year, or in my case, several, without ever putting a face to a name or knowing what the person looks like, the person who's spending 7 hours with your kid. I don't have research to tell you that that's directly causing behavior issues. I want to be honest about that, but I have coached enough teachers and sat across enough parent conferences to tell you this much. A parent who's shaken your hand and talks to you face to face will treat you differently than a parent who's only met you on the phone or has only ever seen you through an email signature. Whether that translates into what's happening in the classrooms, I think is worth sitting with. So to Brianna and to every parent going through this for the first time, I don't think you're wrong to notice any of this. The car line really is a lot to ask of a 5-year-old. The Google accounts, that's something most of us never sign up for and don't even know about. And not knowing what your kid's teacher looks like a whole month into the school year is genuinely a strange thing to think about when you think about how school works. None of this is new exactly, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth talking about. Here's my question for you, and I want you to actually write it in the comments. Did you know what your child's teacher looked like within the first month of school this year? And if not, do you think it matters? And before I go, I need to give Brianna a shout out and a follow. So go give Brianna Bado a follow on Instagram and YouTube. She's at Brianna, BriannaBado on both. She's already got like 142,000 subscribers. So she's just making motherhood easier and more fun for the rest of us. Her content is really what sparked this whole episode. So yeah, go give her some traffic. I'm the Dragon Lady. This has been the Veteran Teacher Files. And if this episode gave you something to think about, do me a favor. Follow, subscribe, and share it with another parent or teacher who needs to hear it. Drop a comment letting me know that your car line horror story, and I'll see you next time.